Hi everyone and welcome to my channel. I'm Anne-Marie Keister and I am pleased to be part of Altenew's Bold and Beautiful video hop and giveaway. There are beautiful products in this release. My favourite has to be the Art of Flowers stamp set, which is an unusual shape with a whimsical feel, and I decided that I would make 3 cards for this video and show you 3 different ways to colour the image and create 3 completely different cards. So for my first card, I've prepped my cardstock with anti-static powder and I've applied sticky clear embossing ink to the image and to the stamp, should I say, and I have then added some golden pink embossing powder and I'm heat setting that until it's smooth and melted. Now you'll notice there's a little area in the middle which didn't quite get enough embossing ink and powder, and because I have kept the stamp in the same position in my MISTI, I'm able to put the cardstock straight back in, prep it again with some powder, anti-static powder, add a little bit more ink and embossing powder and just heat set that extra area, and then that gives me the image that I was looking for. So I'm keeping my embossing tool, my heat tool, moving at all times so that I reduce the amount of warpage to my cardstock and I make sure that I don't burn the cardstock. The next stage is to go on to colouring the image, and there is a layering stencil set that matches the stamp. I have chosen for this card to use crisp dye ink, and the set I'm using is called Spring Bouquet. There is a layering guide in the stamp and stencil set, and I am following that guide. I find these guides very helpful. This is a pretty simple image to layer up and to figure out. It's really easy to know where to put your ink and how to follow the guide. So I'm starting off with the leaves. I'm adding the lightest colour as a base layer to the leaf images, and then I'm going in with the next colour and adding just a small amount to the base of each leaf to add some extra dimension and interest. I'm using my small mini ink blending tools, and I find these very useful when you have a stencil with small areas that you need to ink up. Once I've finished the leaves, I'm able to go on to put some colour into the flowers, and I'm starting off again with the lightest colour and then following the guide, moving the stencil as it indicates so that I can ink up all the flowers with a pink, and then add a darker shade in the middle, in the center of the flowers, and then I'm using for the little mini buds, I'm using the darkest shade as well. Now you can use any colorway you like. I love pink, so this set I found probably an ink set that I go to quite a lot. You'll notice that I have used my mono sand eraser for a little area where I had smudged some of the ink where I didn't want it. because of the shape of the unusual shape of this stamp set, I felt that it lended itself to making a circle card, just something different. So I've used some nesting circle dies from my stash. I've cut out 2 circles, and I have used my Altenew scoring board to score 1/2 inch on one side, which will become the back of my card. To add some extra interest and also bring in or continue with the gold embossing, I have dragged my embossing pad around the edge of the what will be the front of my card. I've added some more golden pink embossing powder, and I'm slowly heat setting that. That'll just add a little bit more interest, and I think it looks nicer than having just the plain white edge. Once I have finished that, I will add some glue to the back of that area where I've scored. Stick the two together, and then we have a circular shaped card, which I think is lovely and unusual, and it actually fits the circular shape of the stamp set really well. I've used the coordinating die to die cut the image, and this die really cuts all the little landlocked areas really well, so it becomes a really pretty image, and I think one that is great to be able to add some instant dimension foam tape and add that onto the front. I'm using the One Go Birthday stamp and die set, and ahead of this video I had made a whole lot of different options so that I have them in the front of my stamp pocket, and I'm able to use them for all sorts of cards in the future. I'm adding a few gems from my stash to the centers of the flowers just for some extra interest, and I've used rose gold cardstock for that sentiment, bringing through that same color scheme again. Now going on to the second card, I've used the opposite edges of the A2 size panel, and I've once again placed the stamp set into my MISTI so that it will just cover each opposite corner. I have used embossing powder again, some obsidian ink, and then the Altenew translucent pearl embossing powder, which gives a lovely shine. I've also used my dye inks to colour the image again, and then for something different and just to add some more detail, but easy detail, I have brought out my woodless colouring pencils, and I'm adding in, with similar shades just a bit darker than the inks, I'm adding in some details from the centers of the flowers, and this will also give some more dimension. Now you could use just your colouring pencils to colour the whole image without using the dyes, should I say the dye inks, but why not use both? They layer up beautifully, and as you can see, I'm not doing anything too dramatic, very simple colouring just to add some more depth. I will also once again use a sentiment from the One Go Birthday stamp and die set for the middle. I will add this to a black card panel so that there's a nice black border, which once again brings through that shows up the black embossing, and then add that to a card panel. So here I'm just adding some more detail, a bit more darker detail to the little purple buds, and I've done the same for the leaves. So the colours in the woodless colouring set are similar or complementary colours to the inks, so they are really easy to use and very nice to blend with your inks. Here I'm just putting a little bit of green, adding some green to the base of each leaf, just to darken up the colour. So now onto that black panel, and then adding some more gems from my stash. The sentiment across on a diagonal across the front, and I chose a sentiment that I had stamped with white pigment ink, pure white embossing powder onto black cardstock, and then I've used some foam tape to pop that up. It's just a different way to use the stamp. It doesn't look, you can't see, it doesn't look like you've got that arch, because that's out of the A2 panel, but I think it gives a really unusual look. And now for my third card, I'm using some black cardstock this time, prepping my panel, inking it up with embossing ink, and this time I'm going to use Altenew rose gold embossing powder. This is probably my favorite embossing powder out of all of them. For this card I'm choosing to stamp the image just on the very top and at the very bottom. So the technique is very similar to my previous card. There goes the rose gold embossing powder, and I will heat set that until it's smooth and melted. Now if you get any stray bits of embossing powder where you don't want them, I keep a little dry tiny little brush, it's actually a makeup brush, handy, and that's just for wiping away any unwanted embossing flakes that may be where you don't want them. I'll be able to wipe this panel clear with a dry microfiber cloth to get rid of the excess embossing powder and the embossing prep bag. Now for this card I thought, why not use my metallic watercolor 14 pan set. I love this pan, and although I haven't used a watercolor cardstock, I'm able to still use this because I'm not going to use a lot of water, and the metallics have such an amazing shine and brightness to them, and they show up so beautifully on black. I found myself using this technique on many cards. I just think it's so striking. So once again, you cannot see the arch of the stamp. You're only seeing the floral image on the top and the bottom. And I'm very simply colouring in on each side exactly the same to have almost a mirror image of the opposite side. So I'm using clean clear water, and I'm now going on to the leaves, adding in colour. I'm not doing any shading. I'm simply colouring inside the embossed image, and I'm using very little water. So you'll get a good amount of colour, and the paper won't warp because I haven't used a lot of water. So just choosing different colours to colour in the buds and the different flowers and the centres of the flowers until I'm happy that everything's coloured. And then we'll go on to finishing this very pretty card. I decided to make a banner, a belly band almost, a band about a 1-inch thick band to go across the empty area in the middle of this card. And I've used the same technique that I did for the circular card, where I have dipped each long end of the piece of cardstock into my clear embossing ink and then into the rose gold embossing powder. And you'll see when I add this, the 1-inch strip actually shows up more because I add some instant dimension foam tape behind it, and also because I've got that little edging of gold, rose gold, just to highlight that. That is where my sentiment will go. So just the finishing touches to that image, and look how beautiful that is. It's just so striking, so shiny, and oh, I can't get enough of these metallic watercolor paints. I just love them. So there's that strip that I created off camera, and I'm using the same sentiments from the One Go birthday stamp set. This time some white and white cardstock with black embossing. I used obsidian ink to stamp, and then some clear embossing powder over that. Just gives a bit of extra shine to the words. And there you have it. 3 cards, 3 very different looks, using different mediums to colour. I really hope you've enjoyed this video. Don't forget to comment for your chance to win. Bye bye for now.